So hello to everybody who's arriving. People will be arriving as I'm speaking. Before we get started, really, and how we're going to do this film festival online, it's the first time I've ever done anything like it. And it's the first time I think that the online events people have ever done anything quite like this with film. So it's going to be new. So we're going to bear with us. So we'll try not to kind of create any issues. And we've got a great panel for you later on. They're really creative people, as you're just about to find out. And we're going to have a greatest conversation about survivors, trauma, and creativity in activism. I think it's a really important conversation at this moment in time to have. So first of all, I'm going to introduce a colleague of mine called Neve Rose. And I met Neve about a year ago now, and she was the co-founder of a students' action group at the University of Leeds, which is campaigning for better street protection for all students from sexual harassment, and especially issues like spiking. And we got into conversation, and actually the Kintsugi project really was born in that conversation, and from one of our male survivors in our service who had reminded me of it, because I'd kind of spoken about Kintsugi many years ago that I'd forgotten about. And so it was really good to kind of bring that back. And that has developed into a series of projects, which we're about to kind of unpack, Neve will talk about, which are really exciting. And this is the third in that kind of process. The Kintsugi Conversations online, unofficial. We're not officially connected to Leeds International Film Festival, but who knows, next year, maybe we'll do a film festival that actually is. So Neve is amazing. She's a graduate activist. She's a composer. She's an animator now. So she's just learned how to animate. Quite amazing. And she works for me as my admin officer, and in many ways my personal assistant, because she keeps me on track and makes sure I didn't go off on tangents. So I'm really pleased that we know her. And whilst it was a collaborative project, I'll let Neve tell you about it. Neve, over to you. Tell us about the animation that we're just about to, and its story behind it.
So we filmed the animation in a puppetry weekend workshop that Raven hosted, who's another panel member tonight. And it was a really great weekend. Quite a small group of people, but we really all came together to make this, and we made the story together, and it has a really good message, the story. So the film is still a bit of a work in progress. I'm still kind of editing it together, so it's yet to have the voiceover put in, but I think you'll be able to see kind of the way the story develops just from the imagery, but I'll give like a kind of brief overview. It starts with a bird who's kind of flying, and it gets captured and kind of hurt physically and deserted in this like unknown space. So it tries to find its way to safety, and along the way it meets other animals to that kind of give it advice, and it eventually finds a safe place, and kind of can then help others that are at that first starting point, and guide them through the process of healing. It's called Journey. So yeah, I hope that you enjoy it.
I'm going to say something that Neve didn't actually probably mention, is that she also composed the soundtrack to that animation. So she's the composer and she's the editor, and it was a combined effort. I think it needs an overview and kind of a voiceover to tell the story to reinforce it. But I think it's quite an amazing piece of work, really, and really, really, really amazing. So thank you very much, Neve. We'll chat later about all of that. So I just also mention that actually you co-founded the Students Against Sexual Harassment and Assault called Sasha, who were an amazing group of young people at Leeds University. And you'll and Neve will actually be chairing this tomorrow. So she's learning everything she'll ever need to know about not making mistakes this evening, like me. So that's really cool. Raven, I think you're next. So I met Raven, or we communicated about a year and a half ago now. And Raven emailed me and said, would I be interested in shadow puppetry? And it actually was the kind of time when we were exploring Kintsugi as a project. And I thought, yeah, that might be really interesting. So we've had this conversation. I'm not sure she ever thought it would come to an animation on a online unofficial film festival. But you know, it's been a journey, but it's been an amazing journey. And one of the participants of the workshop that created that animation fed back that they had never been to a workshop as good as that. Oh. It really, really, really was something very special for them. So I just wanted to share that. Oh. So Raven is an award-winning artist, activist who runs Puppet Revolution Theatre Company. She also produces films and teaches workshops. Her medium is puppetry for adults, which can be surprisingly moving and inspire audience discussions for social change. As I said, I commissioned a workshop to Raven a few months ago, which created an amazing piece of animation that when we finish it, I think is a very powerful representation of what you can do, even when you think you don't have any skills in the area of animation. So Raven also does the shadow theatre for social change, where she, and she taught us how to do that really well. Film using shadow theatre techniques can be powerful. Metaphor is a powerful tool. So having said all that, I'll hand over to you, Raven, to kind of tell the story of your journey through using puppetry and theatre to change social action in its wider sense, sexual violence.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. First of all, I just want to say wonderful, wonderful work, Neve. You've done such a wonderful, amazing job of editing that, and the music is beautiful. I can't wait to see the final form of it, but even so, it's just gorgeous. I'm really happy for you that you learned so much and brought so much of your own skills to the project. So yes, I do a lot of activism, and I have done a lot of activism around, mostly around human trafficking. I'm a survivor of human trafficking. And when I first escaped from it, I did a lot of drawing and painting and writing. And this was all sort of, for my own process to recover from it. But I was really drawn to activism work and met a lot of other survivors who were very validating. I had a wonderful community when I first escaped, and they were really into stopping these crimes. So it was kind of from very early on in my healing process and early on in my escape from these crimes, I started doing some activism work in solidarity with other survivors. And that was in the early 90s. And unfortunately, there was initially some wonderful kind of groundbreaking speaking out around the subject. And then there was shortly after that a backlash. And so most of my work then was just kind of pushing against the backlash. But I was mostly doing it through my paintings and exhibitions and things like that. And then after I graduated from university, I got hired at this amazing place called Folk Modest Puppets And then I fell in love with puppetry, of course. And I started thinking, oh gosh, maybe I could actually use puppetry to do activism, around my own story and around, raising awareness for human trafficking. And it took me many years, but I put together finally a film that is autobiographical, and it's called Hooray for Hollywood. You may detect a slight American accent, and that is because I grew up in America. And I was trafficked, unfortunately, to Los Angeles. And that's why the film is called that. It's because Hollywood is in Los Angeles. And it's not meant as actual hooray. It's meant as a it's a little sarcastic in the title. And basically, I used this film to raise awareness about these crimes. And this was around 2008, and people really weren't talking about this publicly at all. So it was quite new to audiences that this basically that people may have heard of human trafficking, but either they didn't know what it was, or they certainly didn't think it might happen here or in any other kind of Western type place. Like it was, they thought of as something like really exotic and rare, or something that happened someplace else. And so it was a way to raise awareness and help people see that yes, it is something that happens. It's quite common, unfortunately. But also empower people to talk about it and to talk about change, because it's the sort of crime that thrives in secrecy. So as long as people are talking about it, that actually shines a light where it needs to go, so that the criminals don't have as many places to hide, and so that people who might be trafficked can see that they don't have to endure that, that there might be some alternatives, that they might be able to get some help, that they might be able to eventually escape. It just gives some hope to people who might still be victimized. And so yes, I did loads and loads of campaigning and training of charity staff, and showing this film to policymakers, taking it to United Nations in Geneva and Commission on the Status of Women in New York, and London City Hall, and Oxford. They had like this Ox policy conference. Anyway, it was this kind of massive effort, and a little bit too exposing for me, because I did speak with the press quite a lot, and even though I tried really hard to keep hold of the interviews, unfortunately sometimes they put like really, really offensive headline on it. Anyway, so I've had mixed experiences with press. On the whole, I'm glad I did it, but it had some unfortunate repercussions for me. That anyway. So basically, after Hooray for Hollywood, I made another show called Love versus Trauma, which was about how to heal. And I would follow it with a post-show discussion on how we can heal, and basically just introduce people to the concept that we all have trauma, and that there are kind of some it's not a secret how to recover, that there's lots and lots of people who have done it and are doing it, and that the more we can exchange knowledge about it, the more we can just accept that this is part of being a human being, then the more that we can the more the audiences can feel empowered to change things in their own lives, even if they don't have quite the same sort of trauma that I've had. But everybody has some trauma, especially since the pandemic. Anyway, I'll let you go into the video now, since I feel like I've talked too much.
Anyway, there's no harm in... Those little buggers are too young to... I mean, look at me. I'm fine. It's so hard bringing up a family these days.
It's after 4. We should go get the kids.
Oops, time flies. Are you finished with that? What's in LA? She's not exactly...
Studios. Lots of people with lots of money who want special films.
You'll never get away.
You were such a sweet baby. What happened? How could you leave me like this?
But I still can remember the place I knew before, a place I belonged to, the family of life. I was loved and safe and warm in the place before I was born. These tiniest hands reach out for me. Warming the gaps in my cracked memory. So gather your pieces and plant them as seeds in new soil. There is a way out and someone's on shore, waiting to welcome you home. We all deserve care. We all deserve care.
Muting myself. So let me unmute myself so you can actually hear what I'm about to say. Thank you very much for that. And can I say something about talking too much? If you're a survivor, I don't think survivors can talk too much, personally. I think our society and culture keeps putting us into boxes where we're not allowed to say anything. I think when we have an opportunity to talk to each other and audiences that are interested, then actually we should carry on talking and talking about our experiences. So I don't ever apologize for talking too much. I think it's something we shouldn't be apologizing for. Thank you. Patrick, you're up next. So let me introduce Patrick. Patrick may not remember, but I met Patrick about, it must be nearly 12 years ago. at a conference in London where I think Patrick had first just emerged. And it was a conference run by Survivors UK. And it was one Saturday afternoon. I was busy going somewhere else, and I popped in, and Patrick spoke to me very briefly. And we hadn't really touched base until I saw Groomed. And Groomed is one of the most powerful representations of survivor experience I've ever seen. And it's amazingly well written and performed by Patrick, as you'll see him soon. So let me give Patrick a more formal introduction. Patrick is a survivor of repeated sexual abuse at the age of 9 at the hands of his primary school teacher, David Morby, in Gravesend, Kent. One of his survival strategies was doing plays. Dealing with the pretend characters was less scary than real people. He became a professional theatre director. When he decided to tell the truth, it was instinctive to write a dramatised testimony, Groomed, and you'll see a clip of it this evening in a second. It's well worth watching all of it. This was later filmed. Both the play and film will be shown later this week. Thank you very much for being here, Patrick. Just so everybody knows, Patrick is in a hotel waiting for a flight to Rome because he is performing Groomed to the Pope on Thursday. Or to the Vatican, I suspect.
Yeah, I don't know whether the Pope will be there.
I suspect he may well be, but I don't want to give you any stage fright. So, but he's very kindly agreed to come along to this. He calls himself an accidental activist. He has numerous articles and interviews in the national media and has travelled to the G7 summit, the European Parliament, the French Assemblée Nationale, as well as the UK Home Office, all with the Brave Movement, which is an amazing project that's currently running across the world to bring survivor CSA voices to the powerful at very, very high strategic levels. An amazing initiative. So I'll take a brave breath and I'll hand over to you, Patrick, to give your own brief kind of summary, or long summary if you choose, about the story of Groomed.
Well, I wrote Groomed just to tell the truth. I wanted to tell the truth. I had been a theatre director for about, getting on for 40 years. And I realized that it was my strategy and it was hiding a bit. And I'd done a lot of therapy, and I thought, well, I must bring the two streams together, the therapy and the theatre. And so I wrote Groomed. I had no idea it was going to develop into a play and then into a film. None whatsoever. All that was accidental. Much helped by Nancy Meckler, brilliant director of both film and play, both incredibly low budget. And when I say I'm an accidental activist, I really mean that. I fell into it. And I still feel when I go to these conferences, I think, oh my God, somebody's going to say, what's he doing here? He doesn't know what he's talking about. But I seem to have the gift of the gab. And in this little extract, this is a film of the stage performance, but we put it into a primary school, into an actual modern primary school. And this is about disclosing to my mother, and my mother realizing how much she had been groomed herself by the teacher, because the teacher used to come to our house and flirt with my mother when really he was sexually interested in me. And I did not tell my mother well, she was about 80 when I told her. And this is just a little sequence.
And one ordinary day, not so very long ago, I am driving along the south coast with my mother to see the Brighton Pavilion. She tells me she's been thinking about modern education. But you had wonderful teachers, didn't you, Paddy? Mr. Morby was a wonderful teacher. He taught you handwriting. Do you remember? We are passing the turn-off for Tangmere. There's a sign to the military aerodrome, and really, I have no choice. Gently, I speak to my mother the secret. She is silent for 11 miles, and then she almost whispers. You had a lot to cope with when you were little. That is all. And it is enough. But the Brighton Pavilion has a hard job working its magic. Yes, bring on the happy music. Maybe I can leave it all behind. This is what was done to me. It is not who I am. I am not the paper cutout of a man. And you want the happy ending, don't you? Everyone does.
I think you agree. It's kind of a short clip, but powerful, and you can download the full film from the Soho Theatre website.
The sound was jumping, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm not sure why that
jumping.
was, Patrick.
I just want to say, if anybody watches it, sometimes if you're using Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, it does that.
Okay.
It's much better to watch it with a cable or just put it on your computer and wham up the sound.
I think that I won't go into the technology behind it and where it's coming from, but we're kind of truly international this evening with the streaming and things. So it's all being kind of managed and manipulated in the background. Sure. But I apologise for it not for it being a bit jumpy. But you can stream a very, very good copy of it from Soho Theatre, which is a UK-based organisation, and it's on their website, I believe. Is that right, Patrick?
SohoTheatre.com player.
Okay.
You go to their player where they have all their shows, and you just scroll down to Groomed, and it'll cost you £5, but that does not come to me. That is you used 100% for the distribution of the film, because we still haven't paid for the film, to be honest.
It's a very powerful film. I would urge people to download that and pay a £5 is well worth it. And to share it. So thank you very much, Patrick, and we'll have more to chat later on. Hopefully, when we come join the panel, and we can discuss lots of other issues. I'll now move on to Viv. Hello, Viv.
Hey.
So, Viv, I met Viv very briefly online, I think, wasn't it, Viv? We were kind of chatting about another project that may come to fruition next year, which will be really interesting. And also, we'll talk to Richard, who'll be on the panel, who is the director of the Visual Project. And the Visual Project is a strategic kind of project that's trying to change systems, that we call institution systems now, attitudes and reactions and responses to childhood sexual abuse victims, which are very, very important project, and which I'm very, very supportive of. And Viv will be bringing her project to Leeds in the early new year, Upfront Survivors, and she'll talk more about that as the evening goes on. So let me just give you, Viv unfortunately didn't give me a pen portrait, so she may vanish off because I get this wrong, hopefully not. But from what I know of Viv, she's a writer, performer, director of the Big Gordon company, which is an amazing really street orientated, be out there in the community kind of theatre production company. Amazing. You'll see in some of the films how that works. Currently, the Pioneering Project, which is an activist project funded by the Home Office, I believe. So over the next, 3 years, to bring Upfront Survivors, actually involving survivors themselves, leading the conversation using creativity for social change, rather than waiting for systems to manage that for us, actually manage it for ourselves, because we're more than capable of doing that and taking those productive, creative outcomes into the community and kind of sharing with people directly, because that's a powerful thing to do. And to quote something that I saw on her Twitter feed yesterday evening, and I actually know the person who she quotes is Sarah, who is Claire Shaw. Let me get it right. Claire Shaw is a survivor, activist, poet, amazing person. And she said something I think was really, really important before Viv goes to talk about it, is, we should lead our own spaces, and they should be big and proud, bright and visible. And that is Viv. And I think it's amazing what you're doing. So I'm going to hand over to you to kind of give your own, as long as you want. So there's no silence, there's no need to be silent here, and kind of go for it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Rob. I'm glad I didn't send you anything, because I got to hear your version of of our work, which is was really lovely. So thank you,
Thank you.
and thanks for inviting us, or me here, and to share our work. And it's been so beautiful as well to watch everyone's work. I've seen Patrick's show live last year, the year before. Can't remember when it was, Patrick, but it's a brilliant show and definitely worth more than a fiver. So go and check that out. And it's really beautiful to see Raven and Neve's work as well. Yeah, always great to connect, isn't it? That's what I always say. One of my catchphrases, I'm a catchphrase girl, and one of my catchphrases is community only works when people join in. And so any of those opportunities when we get to gather together, I find them really exciting. So yeah, I'm Viv. I'm artistic director of Viv Gordon Company, and all of our work is a creative campaign for voice, visibility, community, and leadership by, for, and with survivors of child sexual abuse. I'm a survivor myself, obviously, that's why I'm doing the work. Had enough, like you say, of waiting for things to change. So we're just sort of getting on with building the change that we want to see, and part of that is trying to really connect across the country, across the world with other amazing projects. So it's brilliant to be here. The work that I'm going to present tonight is a project that we did in partnership with University College London last winter, I suppose, sort of autumn into spring, called Plain Sight. And it was funded by the Violence, Abuse and Mental Health Network. And it was about addressing sort of public perceptions of child sex abuse survivors, and what we as survivors, how we think we're seen by the public, bearing in mind that we are part of the public. So some of that is about how we see ourselves, and also how we want to be seen, or what we want people to understand about our experiences. And it was a creative research project. It involved 25 survivors who all responded to a creative survey where they wrote short stories and poems and things like that, and contributed their ideas. And then I was given all the anonymized transcripts and had the pleasure to write 4 monologues. We'll see how we go, whether we get through all 4, because I want to make sure there's lots of time for discussion as well. But the first one is called Alive. And one of the things that came really strongly through the research was people are really fed up with the sort of toxic positivity narratives that there are around child sex abuse survival, and the whole sort of recovery narrative that we're supposed to somehow get better and thrive and feel great and all of that stuff. And a lot of people expressed feeling really pissed off about that, and really wanted actually people to understand how shit it is surviving child sexual abuse, as well as the stuff, the positive stuff. There is that side to it, that it's just a really shit experience. And so that's what this film is about. And I think that's probably all I want to say about it. I really enjoyed making it because it's really ragey, and I think we need rage. We need to reclaim our rage and not put it away. So yeah, that's what I want to say. Here's Alive.
I am misfortune. I am the wrong place at the wrong time. I am choices taken away, loaded dice, a stacked deck. I am unwanted pity, chaos and contradiction, addiction and appetite. I am making mistakes, fucking things up, backing the wrong horse. I am shouting at children and casual, unsatisfying sex. I am distrust and broken contracts. I am disappointment. I am frightened all of the time. I am looking over my shoulder, a tight rein, a spreadsheet that will never add up. Stress and panic, eyes on stalks, anger and snark. I am anger. I am not going to polish this turd. I am not going to make this better. I am a turd. I am what is left after everyone has gorged themselves. The mess you are glad someone else deals with. Undigestible matter, a bad smell, detritus and contamination. I am contamination and disgust. I am an unstable system in constant conflict, a nuclear bomb in your basement. I am a living, burning hell, the terror of many tons of rubble, devastation and consequence, exposed wire. I am civil war. I am a miscarriage of justice. I am nothing left to lose. Hunger and deprivation, specimen, stooge, statistic and scapegoat. I am Exhibit A. Anyone and everyone and no one and nothing. I am every street and every school, the club you don't want to join. I am a million minute decisions to survive, the tiny flame of a birthday wish. I am painful, jagged, clawing fingernails on dirty hands that are still alive.
Hey, the credits are the same on each one, so we wouldn't need, because there's 4 of them. We could watch the credits 4 times if we wanted. Oh yeah, it's really great. I haven't watched it for ages, so it's interesting watching it back. So there's the second film is called Mirror, and it's a response to 2 of the themes that came out of the research. One of them was about pathologizing mental health environments, and that whole all the pathologizing narratives around survivors, that somehow there's something wrong with us, and that we're supposed to be better, more mindful, more resilient. Somehow it's all about us being better, isn't it, rather than abusers not abusing people and the culture being better. And so that's something that a lot of us are really pissed off about a lot of the time and campaigning to change. And so that was a strong theme in the research. And then the other theme that came out in the research was about people, survivors in professional roles, working in those environments where survivors are being pathologized in mental health systems. So this sort of, it's a little story that I wrote. It's quite funny, and that's all I'm going to say about it. That's what it's about. There we go.
So I've had an interesting day. I came clean. I came out professionally, which I didn't plan. It just happened. And I've never lied about it, but to be honest, no one has ever asked. And there's just this funny separation. We are the professionals and they, well, now we're supposed to call them customers, which implies a choice most of them don't have. We are efficient, skillful, detached, disturbingly, and they are difficult, complex, challenging. I mean, there's so many assumptions, most of which are negative about survivors, so I just cut off, carried on training, working, doing my CPD, propping up the us and themness of it all. And, you know, I have been specifically discriminated against in a previous role after I disclosed, seen as less capable, shunned actually. So, and this system that doesn't really help, that pathologizes people, re-traumatizes people, that fails to deal with the actual issues, that never asks why someone is distressed or why someone wouldn't automatically bow to the authority of our great fucking wisdom. And yes, there is room for compassion, for connection, for individual kindnesses, although less and less time. And yes, we can blame the government and funding and the trust and low pay and burnout and then there are just some people who are like your Nurse Ratched types, like Amanda, who is actually just a bit of a bully, a lot of a bully, a bit of a cunt, actually. And I've been a bit naughty. I mean, it's ridiculous, but I just despise her. And it gives me a little kick to quietly piss her off. So I've been stealing her tea bags, her special ones, just a few a week for the last 3 years. And it gives me great pleasure and entertainment to watch her deal with it, to try and work out where they're going and who's taking them. And the announcements in the staff room are fun. And the labelling and post-it note phase, that was a particular high point. And it's petty revenge, but Jesus Christ, she is fucking monstrous. Today, in the team meeting, which was the usual shit show, she was peak Amanda, waxing lyrical about one of the customers, saying actually disgusting things like boasting that she specifically ignored this person, citing her diagnosis as a reason to discredit her and invalidate her. And she kept saying, like it was some sort of professional badge of honour, people like her just want attention and you can't believe anything she says, and people like her, blah, blah, blah. And I saw red and everything went slow motion. And I was standing up in the meeting shouting, I am people like her. She is me. I am her. And we are people worthy of love, attention, connection, creative, resourceful human beings who have learned to sit with pain that most people cannot even imagine. And then I carried on for quite a while, covered her vile complacency, threw some stats around and somehow didn't call her a cunt. And then, for some reason, I told her about the tea bags. I was trying to make a point about how that minor violation made her feel, her adaptive behaviours and vigilance, trying to hold up a mirror and say, what if it wasn't tea bags? What if it was your childhood, your innocence, your body? And it was interesting, the usual mixed bag of you're so brave and, well, this isn't really appropriate. And you could see some people recalibrating, like I suddenly made sense to them in a way that I hadn't before. And I said, I didn't tell you because I wanted you to see me differently. I told you because I wanted you to see you differently. And then I checked out, started crying and dissociating, and Nurse Ratched bitch came over all tight and poised and wanted, in that moment, to have an apology about the tea bags. And I was like, wait, what? I've just called out your deeply offensive, victim-blaming behaviour, and you want me to apologise? And she persisted. Theft is theft, Anita, she said. Wrongdoing is wrongdoing, and people are entitled to their feelings. And I looked her in the eye and said, exactly, Amanda. That is exactly my point.
Hey, think we all know some Amandas. Oh, very satisfying to perform that one and write it. Have we got time for 2 more?
We have, Viv. So it was kind of, I think they're run for the next 5, nearly 10 minutes, and then we can get into the panel. I think the
Okay.
audience have been missing the last 2 if you didn't show them. So, because I think they're really powerful. So please do.
Okay, thank you. So the third one is called The Story. And again, it was responding to things that came out of the research. So there are bits of me in all the pieces, of course, because I wrote them and performed them. And but a lot of it came from the transcripts of the research. So it's a collective voice. And so some of the themes that came out, one was about sort of asking people to reflect on how child sexual abuse survivors have been seen over time, how were seen 100 years ago, how we were seen 100 years ago, how we might be seen in 100 years' time. And we were sort of trying to get some sort of people's perspective on change. And so that was something that was really interesting, of how it's always gone on and how we're at quite a turning point, I think, in terms of community and collective action and those sorts of things, but also how people don't feel that hopeful about it being able to stop it. Obviously, we all would like to stop it. Me personally, I feel that, we get to a point where it's so out in the open that there's nowhere left to hide and it becomes untenable. But yeah, it was really interesting to see that, of people writing really clearly about, this will still be happening in 100 years' time. And yeah, that's difficult to be with. So that's one of the themes of this. And then the other theme that came through really strongly was people really wanting to communicate stuff about the embodied experience of surviving, and how the abuse is just one part of that. And then we have to live as survivors, and all the things that involves, including, that we're much more likely to live with long-term health conditions, disabilities, that mental health needs, all sorts of different impacts, lower income, loss of career development, all of those things that have, the way that our lives have been disrupted and what we're now living with. And so people really wanted to particularly talk about the impact on their bodies. And, again, that's kicking back against that thing that the historic abuse idea, like it's something that happened to us ages ago. I'm 52. I was last abused, thankfully, when I was about 10. And and then I've had to survive the patriarchy and all of that as well. But it's not that things stopped 42 years ago for me. I've had to live with all of that stuff in an ongoing way, and that is everyone who's a survivor. That's our experience. So that's what this is about, and it's called The Story. And I'll tell you afterwards some funny things about when we were filming it, because it was hilarious filming it. There we go.
Hey, are you ready? Once upon a time, that was all our yesterdays and far too many of our tomorrows. 100 years ago, and in 10 minutes' time, there was a little child who was given a story to tell. She did not choose the story. The story chose her, and she was given it before she even had the words to tell it, and before she even had the brain to remember or understand it. And it sat in her torso like concrete, alien and stiff and heavy. It penetrated her very cells, changing the very structure of her being, weaving like rope, up through her veins, into her throat, her teeth, her hair. And she knew the story would never leave her, but she hoped that one day she might leave the story. And as she grew, the story seeped and sweated from her pores, surrounding her with a fog so dense that she was amazed no one ever mentioned it. She wasn't even sure if anyone could see it, and she really wanted them to, because it was very lonely behind that haze, and she really didn't want them to, because she sensed it could be even more lonely if they did. And the child tried everything. She learnt to run very fast, but she could not outrun it. She conjured up fog-eating deities, but no matter how much they ate, the fog remained. And she could not stop thinking about peeling off her own skin. But she knew that while that might be the end of the fog, it would also be the end of her. And as she reached her adolescence, she did wonder a lot about whether that mattered, and why the story had been given to her, and whether maybe she had been born bad or had somehow invited the story in. And the concrete in her torso was spreading and cracking, and her body no longer felt like one thing, but splintered and shattered, and every noise startled her, and every breath seemed to thicken the air. And as she became her adult self, she did wonder a lot about where she belonged, and why every day her muscles betrayed her, and whether maybe she was just lazy, or should somehow be better at pretending. And inside her throat, the rope quickened and tightened and coiled from her mouth with the strangest of sounds, surprising and painful and plaintive and primal. A tapestry of language unfurled through the fog. And year in, year out, and for all her tomorrows, and 10 years ago, and for all our forevers, she knew that the story would never be over, because she was the story, and the story was her, and her body and volume of silence unclenching. And she wondered if she might become her own author, and whether she maybe might write a good ending. And she wondered and wondered over and over whether she maybe might dare to hope.
Okay, thanks. It's really a pleasure to share all of them. Thank you. We filmed them all in one day, in a one crazy day, and we, for that piece, we hired an Airbnb, and then we got out all the mealworms in this Airbnb. We counted them out, and then we looked after them really nicely, by the way, for anyone who's concerned about the mealworms. They probably were eaten by birds in the end, but that is sort of where they were destined for. But we counted them out, and then we counted them back in, and after we finished filming, there was one missing. We were like, ah! And so we found it in the doll's hair in the end. It was quite a thing having them crawling over me. Oh, yeah, beautiful. So the last one is called We, and it's about coming into community. And I would say, like, I cried the whole time I wrote this. That's never happened to me before, that I cried in a good way, in a like how moved I am by the growth of our community, which is something that I didn't know if I would ever see in my lifetime. And something that that's all of my work is about building community. And when I read the transcripts, I didn't know if that would be there, because obviously when you're doing this work, you don't know if you're sort of in a little bubble where you're hearing only what the people you're interacting with, and you're sort of hearing them. And actually what came through really strongly in the transcripts was that everyone is feeling this shift, that we're in the middle of this shift, and everyone is starting to feel, everyone who took part in the research, I'm not saying all survivors are feeling that, because we know a lot of survivors are really, really isolated and have never told anyone, and all of that stuff. So just to be clear, I'm not saying everyone feels connected, because that's just not real. But in the people who took part in the research, that was something that they could feel it growing, and that moved me so much, because that's what I'm dedicating my life to. Really, I'm not saying that's all me, of course, that's lots of different activists doing that work. So it really moved me, and then writing this really moved me, because I can remember a time when I had never met another survivor and I didn't feel connected, and I felt, I can remember that, and I can remember my steps into community and what that was like for me. And I'm so joyously happy that that has changed for me, and I'm joyously happy that that is changing in the world as well. And so, yeah, that's what I was crying about when I wrote this, and it's my favorite one. So I'm really glad we're ending with it. That's it. Here we go.
Hey, oh my God, I am literally buzzing, like light bulbs and goosebumps. I've just been to this thing. Fuck, I was nervous, and wow, I'm really proud of myself that I did. And I haven't stopped crying, but like tears of relief mainly, and maybe even joy. Like I wasn't expecting joy. And it was like coming home. I've got butterflies in my stomach, and I don't know how to explain it, but God, there were these people, and they were amazing, and they were saying all these things that I've never even thought of, but they seemed so familiar, like I had thought of them, but I hadn't trusted them, or hadn't trusted myself, or but they were so true, so obviously true, and everything else is denial and stigma and fucking oppression, man. And I feel like I've changed, and there's no going back, and that maybe I am a little bit awesome too. It's a fucking revolution. I'm a survivor. Fuck. All the things that I've been so ashamed of make such perfect sense, like the drinking and the cutting. That was me surviving. Those are strategies that I have used to survive, and I can't catch up with myself, because it's like my brain is flipping in the way I dissociate. That is my brain doing exactly what it's supposed to do. It's not me malfunctioning. It's like that's what I was designed for, because no one deserves to be violated the way I have been violated, the way we have been violated. Oh my God. I've never said we before. I've never even thought we before. It's been so lonely. So lonely, so fucking lonely. And today there were loads of us, like actual real people, and so many of them, us, not ashamed, not hiding, not embarrassed, but fucking furious, and Jesus Christ, powerful truth tellers, standing up to be counted, challenging society and all the hush, look the other way, blind eyes, and the cognitive dissonance of it all, like unbelievable statistics, and everyone thinking it's happening somewhere else, and policies promising lifelong care, but we're all on fucking 4-year waiting lists, and wankers joking about paedophiles on telly like raping children is funny. And did you know that we have mandatory reporting in the finance sector, but not for CSA, of 50-year-old men wanting 14-year-old girls? Wow! There was me thinking I was fucked up. Oh, there's so much to take in, so much to think about. And I met this woman who lives like round the corner from me, and she's fucking beautiful, and we're going to meet up next week. Oh, and then we're going to go to this poetry night someone's putting on the week after, and it's like nothing will ever be the same. And I'm not a freak, and I am a freak, and it doesn't matter actually, because I am not the problem, and I am not the problem here. Oh, and I think I made a friend. Yeah, okay, yeah, sure. Okay, bye, darling.